Hi friends, this is Sarah from Crafting and Relaxing, and this is another video in the series on beginning card making. I'm working on templates, so it's for people who know about paper crafting and have the tools but need ideas for cards. Today I'm using the Authentic Felicity pack, and it's one of my UFO unfinished objects that's sitting around and I've started it. I was thinking about cut-aparts. Almost all of the authentic paper packs have these cut-aparts in them, and they're usually the same size rectangle. And if you buy these and you want to use the cut-aparts, you can think about different ways to work them into a card. And I'm going to show some other ideas for you if you don't have a paper brand that does cut-aparts. Some don't do it, like Echo Park typically doesn't have a section of rectangles with sentiments, but some of the other brands do. So first I'm just prepping my papers, and these papers don't have bright white in them. So I changed the measurements a little bit. And the reason I'm flipping back and forth on this piece of paper is because it has those butterflies on the back, and I'm trying to decide, do I want to cut up the butterflies? Do I not? In these videos, I'm leaving this stuff in so you can see real life. You can see more about how to use the cutter. You can see that those of us, even though we make videos, we flip back and forth sometimes and try and decide which paper pad to use. The dogs are making noise in the background. So my card base is white, so I cut that front to 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, which I don't usually do, but I'm going to go ahead and cover the whole card today, the whole card front. Then you could do this a couple different ways with the cut-aparts. You could measure them and then cut your black cardstock exactly a little bit larger. You could glue it down on two sides. I think when I was learning, I would glue it down and then put it in the cutter and cut it straight on the other one. Now I just wing it and then center it when I glue it down. If that doesn't work for you, or you have a different cutter, or it's hard to hold on to, maybe you have trouble with your hands, there's different ways to adapt. So you can see, then I hold it up, I go, yep, that one's going to work, and then I'm going to cut the end off with a border that's equivalent to what I have. It's not measured. I used black because I like contrast, and the bike in the picture had some black on it, so I was trying to use that. I could have used white, but I don't know, white and like antique white, they drive me nuts together. Maybe that's something that I should get used to and get over. I don't know. That's just me. That's how I make them. So you can see here, I'm using that tape from Tuesday morning. I, at this point in time, don't have one favorite adhesive. You'll see me switch back and forth. Sometimes it's because it's what I can find. I will tell you later in this video, I switched to art glitter glue, and it's because I want to be able to jiggle things a little, and I'll show you when we get there. Here, I'm testing. That strip of paper was already cut, but it's too narrow. I love those roses, and I want more of them to show. In the other videos, I've given you exact measurements so that you can have a comfort level. Here, I'm showing you how I decided, and then we'll measure it at the end. So if you want measurements, you can see. You will get to know what sort of borders you like. Are you an 1/8 inch border person? Do you like a 1/4 inch, 3/4, 1/2 inch? You'll get an idea of what looks good to you and start making cards that way, and that's fine. And then you'll probably be more comfortable not measuring. Okay, I want you to look at this really carefully at this point, because this could be my card front, and I'm going to zoom in for you, and I want you to think about, do you like it? Would you stop? Okay, what if we added another layer? We broke up those two printed papers and repeated that tiny black border onto the other paper. That's one of the things that new card makers and paper crafters don't do. They don't layer up, and they don't, it separates a beginner card from a more polished looking card. Now, that is not true if you're using colored pencils or Copic markers and you're doing beautiful coloring. You can have a 1-layer card that stops me in my tracks. But if you're using printed papers, think about, do Do the patterns go too closely together so that you need some contrast and interest? Maybe you just want to ink the edges instead of adding another paper layer. That works too. I did that in my summer card video that I posted on Wednesday. I used some orange ink just because I didn't have any orange paper anymore. I was out of it. And now you can see how that looks, and then watch when we lay that next rectangle on top of it. See the difference? If you don't see it, go back in the video, rewind, and then watch that part again, because there's a very big difference between how that card looked. Now I'm showing you, you could put some flowers on it, you could put ribbons, you could put embellishments, you could take washi tape and add to those borders and make them wider. Also, if you don't have a big piece of black paper like that, you could just put washi on each side. You could also just cheat and put a tiny narrow strip of black paper. I think it would probably look almost the same. It just wouldn't maybe lift it up quite as much, but you can get creative and do whatever you want. And remember, I picked the size of these papers because I chose how much flowers I wanted compared to how much polka dots. It's not rocket science. Just mix it up and find something that you like. And I think part of why this card turned out so nice is because I repeated the same super narrow border. But I'm pretty conservative. I like things very sleek. Okay, here, if you have two pieces of paper and you want to line the ends up perfectly, one way to do it is to stand them up. It works much better with a liquid or movable adhesive. I got lucky on that piece of paper. On this next one, it's not going to work quite as well, and I'll show you what happens. I am leaving these videos true and slow. The only time I'm really cutting sections out is like when I wandered away to look for something or had to let a dog out, something like that. If I'm just not in the video anymore, it doesn't make sense for you to sit there. Okay, so I'm going to try and hold it up again. Right there, it got stuck. And that Tuesday morning roll of adhesive is brutal. So see, it tore the top layer off. Yeah, that's fine. I'm still going to work with it. I always tell you to match up the top first because it's going to show more. I've turned it around so it's closer to me because that camera mount gets in the way. So I'm starting at the top. If I want, I can trim the bottom if it shows or I think it's a problem. Do the top first, but it doesn't always have to be closest to you. You'll see in some of my videos, and it probably infuriates people, I will glue things together. I'll work on my embellishments and glue my layers upside down because it works better for me. You can move things around. I mean, you're just building the layers. There's no rule that says you have to build the card right side up the whole time. It probably makes better YouTube videos, though, I will say. Okay, this one, all square, super narrow borders. I'm going to show you another one that's with the same exact paper pack and the same concept, but turns out quite a bit different, and you can take a look at it and see what you think. Here, we're going to measure this. This is my free, I don't know what this came with, tape measure. So that bottom part looks like, you can probably see better than 2 7/8 maybe. It's almost 3 inches. And then the cut aparts are 1.5 by 2, almost 2. Now here, if you have stamps or other embellishments that you've made, this gives you an idea of other things you could use if you have paper that doesn't have cut aparts. Look at the shapes of your stamps, and you could stamp on a piece of white paper and then layer it just like I did and repeat the same concept. You could turn it sideways and use a rectangle stamp. The reason I showed you this card upright is, in my experience, Authentique, their cut aparts are this shape. They're a vertical rectangle, the way they write their text. They almost always are. Sometimes they have little kids on them that some people say are creepy. Here, I'm introducing you to the corner rounder. When I started these videos, somebody said I should build on them and teach you new techniques every time and really talk to you about some of the details. This is a corner rounder. I think rounded corners are a little softer. I didn't cut that paper as narrow as I wanted. that cut apart was too wide, I noticed, and I wanted to use the same thing. So I trimmed it down again, and then I re-rounded the corners. Rounded corners give you a little more shabby look, maybe a little more country, feminine, that kind of thing. It depends on your style. Some people do not like rounded corners. Some people round two, one each diagonal across from each other. Some people say you should round them all. I don't know. This is EK Success made this corner rounder, this little green one. I would not tell you to run out and buy this corner rounder. It is better than some I've had, but see how I'm getting these little notches and trimming them off? I get those sometimes even on the first attempt, even when I don't change my mind about the size of the paper that I want and trim it. So if you like corner rounders, fine. Look online, ask your friends, try a different one, but don't run out necessarily and buy this green one. Okay, I could glue it together right here and I would have a different look than the other card. But my point of this was to show you rounded corners and give you ideas. So I'm rounding the corners on the black one too. There are big corner rounders, big punches, little ones. I think given the choice, I would buy a slightly larger one next time, because the trick is, it's especially hard with small pieces of paper like these. That's why I keep patching them up. It doesn't go in there square, and if it gets off center a little, it doesn't cut perfectly. So maybe the ones that are slightly larger work better. I don't know. Maybe mine is old. I probably bought it at Goodwill. You never know about me. Here I'm going to layer this up and take a good look at this. This thing is not perfect, all right? The corners are a little off. I don't use liquid adhesive, so I don't have the option of sliding it. It's just, it's kind of wobbly. It's a little off, right? Did I use liquid adhesive? Maybe I did. I don't know. But in the end, it doesn't look perfect. That's okay. Don't throw out perfectly good items or cards, because I talked about it in another one of my videos, I think, about mixing the patterns and paper. You will judge your cards too harshly because A, they're yours, and B, until the whole thing has come together, you don't see how your imperfections and things fade out. You don't really notice. Now, this is kind of funny because I made the top part before I even looked to see if I had papers to go with it, but it's butterflies. It's a butterfly theme. Here I choose two pieces of paper that I like. One has dark and one is light. They both have butterfly theme. And then I find that strip right there that's already cut, and I like it. I like the width of it. Again, this is how I pick my measurements. I'm using papers that are already cut in the pad. That other one wasn't quite wide enough. It wasn't 4 1/4 wide. So I did cut down a full 6x6 sheet for this one. Again, it's 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. That is the same size as my A2 card base. If you're not familiar with these numbers, I think what I'm going to do is put together a playlist of these videos, and you might want to go back and watch the beginning ones if you just wandered in somewhere, because in the earlier ones I had the measurements written down on paper on the screen. Okay, so now because that one was close to the right size, that's how I chose my papers and which one was going to go where. Maybe I would have done it differently. I don't know. I didn't. That did not look the right size to me, so I'm just double checking it there. Again, look at this card. If I had stopped right here, how would it look? Now, what if we put the black in? The black also helps because one is a little more teal, one is a little more blue. You know me, I'd like everything to be more blue probably. Now I'm going to trim the paper down to 5 1/2 because it was actually 6 inches long. And then I'm going to do my same kind of, I want it to be about this wide and experiment. And on this one, you'll see I'm going to change my mind, and I think you'll see why. And in the end, when I looked at this card at the very end, I was like, I don't know that I would make it the same again. That's how I come up with some of my templates, is I make one that I don't like, and then I know I want to change the measurements next time. Okay, when I laid it on top of the butterflies, I thought it covered up too much of that background paper and I wanted to see more of it. So I'm chopping off some black. That is the whole measurement system there. Chopping some off, recentering because my parts aren't glued down, so I can continually recenter. And then I look at it and I like it. But you'll notice my borders are completely different than on my first card. I have more black. I was trying to do that because of the corner rounder. I think it's harder to get real narrow borders. Here I tried it with just 2 corners. It wasn't big enough. You'll notice I sped this part up. I think you've gotten the corner rounder concept by now. I didn't think you wanted to watch it like 8 times really slow. I'm gluing the centerpiece down, trimming the little oopses, and then on this one, I'm using art glitter glue because it's a little harder to line things up when everything's rounded, and I wanted to have that extra, I don't know, 3 seconds, 5 seconds, it's probably not a full 10, especially if it's warm in your room, to just jiggle it, to move it a tiny bit if I didn't like it. If you're using a permanent double stick tape, you are not going to get that. You're committed, right? And then if you tear it off, you've bent it up. I got lucky on that last card. Then I'm putting it down here, and you can really critique it and say, okay, would you make this card this way? I don't know if I would. I think I probably should have gone with more similar borders, but that's me. I like things kind of matchy-matchy, like I've said before. That's probably why I don't get too much into shabby. There's a lot of probably pushing boundaries that maybe I'm just not there yet. Maybe those of you that are shabby lovers will win me over. I love it. I'm just not good at making it. I think that's the thing. Okay, then I'm going to lay these 2 cards next to each other so you can see how they turned out and you can think about them and critique them. And you can leave me comments below. You can tell me which one you like better and why not. That's totally fine. Won't hurt my feelings. I just wanted to show you 2 different cards. I would have repeated the first one, but that wasn't the point of this video. Thanks so much for watching. Bye-bye.